It's a common misconception that drinking 8 glasses of water a day is enough for healthy hydration. But sweat consists of water and sodium, which means you need water plus electrolytes to stay properly hydrated. Thankfully, there are products like Element that have all your electrolyte needs covered. You can try Element Recharge Sample Pack by going to drinkelement.com/speak for only the cost of shipping. Welcome to Speak for Yourself, Marcel. Let me stop. Let me get my composure. Marcel Squally, Clipper fan here. Manuel Acho is out today. He's working on apologies, not only for Kevin Durant, for Paul George as well. But I'll be all right since we're starting with my Clippers. Yes, Kawhi Leonard's out indefinitely with a knee injury, but playoff P, he showed up gigantic up in a big way last night. Paul George put my Clippers on his back. And with a 37.16 rebound performance, LA beat the Jazz and are now 1 win away from their first trip to the conference finals in franchise history. Yeah, you got to take that in. Take it slow. Take a listen to PG after the game.
It was no secret. I knew I had to be big tonight and got to be big going forward. It was just no secret coming into this. I just first put faith in God, believed in myself. My teammates trusted me. T-Lou trusted me. And, I thought we lived in a moment and we just played our hearts out tonight.
Yeah, Heller pointed out we are the most boring sound team in the NBA. But I'm joined now by 3-time NBA champion B.J. Armstrong and Fox NBA analyst Slick Rick Dubuker. So, Slick, did Paul George silence people like you, his critics?
Oh, easy there. Yes,
Already.
He did. For 48 hours. By the way, BJ, be prepared. Marcellus was insufferable yesterday. I can only imagine what he's going to be today.
It gets worse.
But yes, but for 48 hours. Because the reality is, we've seen Paul George give us big performances before. Oh. And he hasn't closed the deal necessarily. And the class of star that we put Paul George in, the class of star that his talent puts him in, and I dare say the class of star that he himself considers himself in, doesn't just have big playoff performances here and there. They win series. They go to conference finals. And ultimately, that's something that Paul George still has to accomplish, still has to get done. He's been consistent throughout these playoffs in a way that you could argue we've never seen before. But it's not over. He needs to get to the next step. And when I look at the Clippers and what they have, it wasn't a surprise or shouldn't have been a surprise that they got it done in Game 5. And it wasn't just Paul George getting it done. He has led the way consistently, not just with his scoring, but with his rebounding, his defense, doing the little things. I need to see him complete the journey before we're going to take away the whole talk of pandemic P and we're going to start talking about playoff P again.
It's amazing that I just heard, 1-2 minutes from Slick Rick Dubuker. And I thought that Paul George did silence his critics. But if I just heard you talk for 2 minutes, obviously his critics still have stuff to say. And not only do they have stuff to say, they have goalposts to move. And it was amazing. I don't know if you heard.
Oh, stop.
I don't know if you heard Slick really between all the beeping, beep, beep, goalposts moving. But I'm going to set it straight. First, let me get into a full screen. It's been a long time since I did a full screen. So, it is time to show you guys what Paul George has been doing in the playoffs right now. I'm showing you guys that are averaging in the conference semifinals, which is a money series, 29 plus, 9 plus rebounds, and 4 plus assists. Woo! Kevin Durant. Interesting. Joel Embiid and Paul George. That's it. You take that full screen away, you think of those other two players, there's no joking. There's no criticism of those guys to the highest level like a Paul George. Now, we all know that Embiid is still in his pursuit of doing what Kevin Durant did not once but twice. But this is why I think it's moving the goalposts. Everyone who is trying to be hypercritical of Paul George, even a Joel Embiid, is doing just this. At first, you get into sports and they tell you, oh, man, just do it as much as you can, as long as you can for the love of the game. And then one day you look up and Daddy looking at you a little different and you're like, Daddy, I love playing sports. He's like, nah, we need more out of you. We need you to go win it all. And you're like, all right. And then there's some people like Slick Rick who take notice that Daddy's being critical of his son. And all of a sudden they start saying, let's jump into it. You at least got to make it to the finals, to the championship. So now you ain't got to be just loving it. You ain't got to just be the one. You got to be one of the two. Then Slick Rick gets homeboys in the media, and they start saying, well, at least make it to a conference finals and be one of the Final Four teams. What the hell are y'all really selling? The point of this is, are you a baller? Do you contribute to the greater good of your team? And can you put your team on your back? Paul George can do all those things. So his critics should be shushed right now because we saw it last night as pure evidence of Paul George being not only elite, but a franchise player.
Well, guys, it's been interesting to watch. You asked the question, is he silencing the critics? The answer is no, because the way we look at the game and the way the game is evaluated now, especially in the media, social media, and all of, is the media is going to continue to criticize him when he doesn't play well, okay? My only criticism of Paul George is the following. The best players are always instinctive players. And when Paul George is instinctively aggressive, there's nothing we can say. We can't question this young man's talent, his ability to finish a game, his ability to score, and all of those things. When he's not aggressive, this is when all the critics come out. When he does what he was able to do in Game 5, you can't say anything. So for those who like Paul George, you can point to the stats. For those who don't like Paul George, they can point to the stats. The only thing I would say to Paul George is, Paul, don't allow you not shooting the ball well to affect how well you play or don't play. Because this young man can defend with the best of them. He can rebound. He has size. He can post. He can get to the mid-range. He can shoot long distance. So just play your game. And when he plays like that, when not only he's scoring the ball, when he starts creating opportunities for his teammates, he is one of the elite players in this league without question. So, you know what? But I think now the way the game is evaluated, when he doesn't play well, you're going to still hear the critics come out and criticize him, even though he's one of the elite talents. I don't think anyone can argue that.
Yeah, Marcellus, that beep, beep, beep that you heard, that wasn't goalposts being moved. That was you lowering the bar for elite players, okay? Here's the reality. We've seen Paul George have tremendous performances, and then we've seen him come up short. And by the way, Joel Embiid is getting criticism right now. Why? Because he's had big performances, but he isn't closing the deal. That has to be part of it when you're put in that elite category. And what do I mean by that? Because this isn't just last year or whatever. You've got a full screen? I've got a full screen. Can I have my full screen, please?
What's up?
Here is the history of big performances by Paul George, followed up immediately by a performance not so big. And in many instances, it has cost his team the series. We can go to a previous time against the Utah Jazz when he was in Oklahoma City. Big Game 5. And then what happened in Game 6? Didn't see anything like it. That's why he's gotten this reputation over the years, because he will follow up one great performance with one not so great performance. I have full confidence that he's capable of doing it this time. I think he has enough around him to make it a W if he does. But we're at the point now where Paul George has to demonstrate, if he's going to complete this circuit, what we saw against Dallas and what we've seen so far against Utah, then there's one more performance left to give. So at this point, this idea like, hey, no, Paul George is done. He's showed. He's a different Paul George right now. Work is not completed, Marcellus. And you can be confident. Be confident in your Clippers. I know they usually fall down at this point.
You better calm down.
I don't think they're going to this time.
Yeah.
But Paul George has got to make sure that they don't.
Look, it's not always on Paul George, as it's not always on any individual player. But we love to do that and construct that narrative like it's like that. Look at B.J. Armstrong. Part of the success he had was not just because of him, not just because of Michael Jordan, not just because of Scottie Pippen. It was a collective, but you know us in the media, let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story. Well, I'm the media member that's going to say facts over feelings. Let's be real about that. Joel Embiid is out there balling. Ben Simmons is the one that's doing what he does in these clutch moments, not be clutch, and that's the issue. So you tell me that, hey, I've seen you before, Paul George. You get big performances, but you don't close the deal. What's the alternative? Small performances, but he does close the deal? The dude is doing his part, and his issues, his criticism is not just because he's inconsistent. Be real about this. Our media has turned into the meme media. You know what the meme media is. Just give me one moment, something Swaggy P-ish, and then all of a sudden, I don't give a damn what you do, we're going to always hold you to that. Paul George having a nickname and then hitting the side of a backboard is what started all this Paul George criticism and hate. Nothing else, because if you look at him, he has averaged over 20 points a game in every series. He scored over 20 points a game in every single game. He's had 30 or more points in 3 straight games. If you just look at Paul George, just these playoffs alone, why is there still the ridicule of playoff P when you see no evidence of the ridicule of what you're trying to say and suggest about playoff P?
Well,
BJ, take care of this for me, please.
Well, I mean, listen, in the end, I just want to see Paul George grind the game out. I really don't care whether he scores 30 points or 15 points. The thing is, what we want is the bottom line, which is to win the game. Paul George now has brought us here with an opportunity to close out Game 6 minus Kawhi Leonard and all of the obstacles that this team has in front of them. The thing that was amazing about that last game there in Utah, no one, myself included, expected them to win this game. Let's just call it like it is. No one expected them. Maybe Marcellus, but the rest of us didn't expect.
Right.
Yeah, no one else expected them to win the game. Now they come in an opportunity to win, and now we're all here again where we're saying, oh, Paul George, he's shown us that he can do it, but can he finish the deal? And Marcellus knows, and every player who's played professionally or at any level understand the following. There's difference than winning a game and closing out a game. Right now, we're expecting Paul George to close out a game because he has 2 opportunities, and we know how difficult it is to play in Utah. That's what made that win in last game so spectacular. They did it on the road, but now we're coming home, and we have every reason to believe that they should finish the deal against a team that's going to be playing with elite desperation here. So I'm excited, but if they don't win, I expect Rick Bucher to have fun on the show. And we don't know what's going to happen in Game 7 because that is a difficult task. So Clipper fans, this is your Game 7 right now because I think it's going to be almost impossible to win that game when you go back there in Utah.
It's exactly right. Everything is tilting in Paul George's direction. He set it up to close the deal now. If it doesn't get done, he's going to be at the top of the list. And I'm not going to have fun. I don't enjoy, like, pointing out somebody when they come up short.
Come on, Butte. Come on.
No. Here's the distinction. I enjoy what it does to Marcellus when I point out that Paul George is not doing what he could do. So ultimately, look, when we look at Marcellus,
what?
You just said that the Chicago Bulls, like the blame for losing or not getting it done, or the responsibility for getting it done, was spread across the entire team. I dare say B.J. Armstrong made his contributions, but ultimately, if they didn't get it done, it was Michael Jordan that was going to wear that, not B.J. Armstrong. Let Tony Kukoc, you go down the line. Like,
I'm not
Judd Bushler wasn't going to take the hit if they didn't get it done.
All I'm saying is, did Michael Jordan get it done without Pippen? Did he get it done when he didn't have a fully formed Pippen? Did he get it done? No. And now this is a Kawhi-less Clippers team with Paul George, and you're going to try and reconstruct
He just got it done. He just got it done in Utah.
Oh, yes. You're making my point, and BJ helped me make my point as well. Here we go. BJ came on here just now saying no one thought they could win Game 5, correct? Did they win Game 5?
No,
Yes,
I thought they could win Game 5.
Well, BJ said it. I'm using his words. So he said that.
I don't think any.
And then all of a sudden he says, well, it's going to be impossible to win Game 7 if you don't take care of business in Game 6. And that's the point. We up here, boy, we're responsible for making this thing look any way we want it to look. Think about it. We are treating Paul George like he's Swaggy P. Like he out there making those type of moments. And that's not who he is. This is the Mark Sanchez model of how you just will bring somebody down before the actual stats will suggest that they should be criticized. Mark Sanchez took the Jets to not 1, 2 AFC championship games. Now, he wasn't balling out of control, nothing near what Paul George is. And he was fine, protected. No one had a word to say negative about Mark Sanchez. Just wait for him to continue to prove, go Mark Sanchez, go. Soon as my man had a butt fumble, they said, got your legacy, got your career, and that's who you are in a bottle. We're doing the same thing to Paul George, despite this is the only guy in Clipper history, 35, 15, and 5 in a postseason game, despite him and only Kevin Durant having those same numbers in a postseason game this year, and despite him going 12 for 22 on the road without Kawhi in Utah, a place that Slick Rick said is impossible to play in as well, and he only had 1 uncontested shot. I'm sorry, y'all gonna be late to this one because y'all don't want to give him his flowers. But if you look at me, here you go. Whole bouquet, dozen full for Paul George, playoff peak. Coming up, LeBron called out the NBA for all the injuries around the league. And I'll tell you if I have an issue with his criticism. Next, don't speak for yourself. Slick, you ain't right. Getting recommendations from your friends for that perfect diet might be a big waste of time. The real answer is already within you, your genes. What are the best foods based on your DNA? What foods have the nutrients that you need? How quickly do you metabolize caffeine and alcohol? Don't guess. Use the code Speak for Yourself for $20 off a Geno Palette DNA kit. Find out how to eat for your genes. Saturday on Fox, the Cardinals take on the Braves. The White Sox battle the Astros, and the Reds face the Padres. All start 7 Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Check local listings for the game in your area. And Kawhi Leonard's knee injury makes him the 8th All-Star to miss a playoff game this year, which is the most in league history. There was a gap of 71 days between games when the Lakers won the title in the bubble to the start of the new season compared to the usual gap of just over 4 months. One person who took notice, LeBron James. He called out the league with a series of tweets which included, quote, "They all didn't want to listen to me about the start of the season. I knew exactly what would happen. I only wanted to protect the well-being of the players, which ultimately is the product and benefit of our game. These injuries aren't just part of the game. If there's one person that knows about the body and how it works all year round, it's me. I speak for the health of all our players, and I hate to see this many injuries this time of the year. Sorry, fans. Wish you guys were seeing all of your favorite guys right now." Okay. Slick Rick and BJ are back. So, BJ, you got an issue with LeBron's criticism of the NBA's condensed schedule?
I used to play with a teammate, a former teammate of mine, Darrell Walker, and he used to have a saying, "I'm with you when you're right, but only when you're right." In this case, LeBron James is speaking some truth. And when I say some truth, you know what? It's a very subjective thing. But in this case, we have to listen to these athletes. You can't condense the amount of time that these guys are playing. You're shortening the season. They're playing more games in a condensed amount of time. And then we're giving them less time to prepare for the season. Okay, so when you have this, you're going to have injuries. And that's what's causing all of these injuries, if you ask me. You know, I go back to when I played this game some years ago. We had a month prior to our first game or so. So we had time to get ourselves in the proper condition. We had time to prepare. We had time to get ourselves ready to play. And then we could go through this marathon of the season. Now they have less time to prepare. They have more games in a shorter, condensed amount of time. And by the way, guys, the offseason was literally a month from the team that played in the finals till now. So now you look at the teams that played in the finals, the Miami Heat out in the first round, the LA Lakers out in the first round. And I'm willing to say probably right now, whoever gets to the finish line here will probably be out in the first round next year because you don't have enough time. We can look at the numbers. The league can come back and say things such as, well, we look at the injuries of last year to this year. The numbers can say whatever it can say. The bottom line is these players need time to properly prepare. They need time to rest and recovery so that we can put the best product, the best product on the floor, which benefits the league, the players, and the fans. So that's my stand. So I think LeBron James has a case, and we should listen to what our players are saying in this instance.
I'm going to just say LeBron James doesn't have a case, even though we are sympathetic to what he's talking about. If you understand what happened this offseason in this condensed schedule, it was something that was mutually agreed upon. Why was it mutually agreed upon? The same reason it's always mutually agreed upon. It's beneficial to all. Money. You want to follow the money, you will follow where everybody's heart really lies. So LeBron James, you signed on to the dotted line just by your participation, just like the NBA Players Association did, just like the NBA owners did to a condensed schedule. Why? Because you had to monetize your labor. It's simple as that. Now, let's talk about the actual injuries. LeBron said, yeah, it was a necessary evil. I didn't really want to do it, but hey, I got to play. I got to get paid. I got to go feed my family, etc. This year, the injuries were added up to a 5.1% injury rate. Okay, now, according to LeBron and his declaration, that would make you think that's the highest it's ever been. Well, since they've been tracking it since 2009, 2010, it is. But you want to know what's right next to it? The next highest year, 4.8. And that's not a COVID year. So now you start to have to dive into the details and say, wait a minute. Is this some grandstanding here? Is this some virtual signaling here? Is this more of a narrative build rather than evidence-based conversation? And once again, my man LeBron, who I think is the greatest basketball player of all time, but not necessarily the deepest with the logic when it comes to these conversations. So this is something that plays where everybody say, yeah, dog. This is a yeah, dog moment, where you get around, you say something, everybody, yeah, dog, and not a single person has opened up a book or opened up a computer and wanted to check the evidence. It's not supported by the numbers. It's just supported by the narrative.
Yes, I have an issue. I have so many issues with this. And it's not a matter of, BJ, it's not a matter of whether or not we should listen to the athletes, and it's not a matter of whether the shortened off season did cause these injuries. I believe that that is a factor without question. But let's begin with the platform that he's utilizing. Twitter is not a place when you have conversations like this, when you have subjects like this, that's not the place to go in order to discuss them. To Marcellus's point, it's when did he say, I told you so? Where and who did he tell? Because the Players Association had a conversation with the NBA, and they ultimately approved this schedule, this offseason, and the way this season was conducted. And why did they? Yeah, they initially backed up and said, that's too quick. And then Adam Silver said, it could cost us $1 billion, and we're going to share the loss, both players and owners. And the players said, okay, let's play 72 games. What do you got? Let's go. All right? So once you do that, you signed on to the program, even if you know it is going to be injurious, because you don't want your pocketbook affected. But it's also the timing of when he's coming out and saying this, all right? Where was this prior to now? Why come out now? And it just comes after, what, Kevin Durant just played 48 minutes in a playoff game, in an electric playoff game, and it comes right before the Hawks and the Clippers give us two big games, and guys are playing 40-plus minutes. The timing could not have been worse. And there's always the I told you so is never good. But when you do the I told you so, and then you don't have the facts to back it up, which Mike Bass of the NBA was all too happy to respond and say, the injury rate is no different than it was last year. And the number of stars and starter-level players is no different than it's been the last 3 years. If you're going to say, I told you so, you better come with some ammo and be solid. Otherwise, it's like, well, you told us, but what did you tell us? And what are you telling us now? Because what we're seeing is what you're telling us is not completely accurate. You said it yourself, BJ. There's some truth in that, But if you're going to go, I told you so, you better be telling the whole truth.
Man, dang.
Well, I'm going to say this. And if you could look at the last 3 years, okay? So let's just take the last 3 years. We have an 82-game schedule. Okay. Then we had a schedule where the season was interrupted because of COVID. And then we have this schedule. So what are we comparing here? Now, we can say these numbers,
Yeah.
but the last 3 years, but they're all three entirely different years.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
they're three different years.
We can say years, but we can say they're all three different years under three different set of circumstances here.
But BJ, you can take that both ways. You can say all three are different, and all three ended up in the same place. So how can you take this particular season and say because of the way this season was played that it caused this thing as opposed to last season or the season before? I'm with you. I'm with you as far as the shortened off season, particularly for the Lakers and the Heat. But you gotta bring a better case than what LeBron brought, or you're gonna get shot down really quickly.
Here is the case. We're playing an enormous amount of games in a condensed amount of time. This is what we're saying. Mm-hmm. And when you have this, you become susceptible to injuries because we know this, that if you're going to push these players and you're going to play and you're going to work out and do all those things, you're going to have a balance so that these athletes, whatever you're doing, can recover. The amount of games, injuries are part of the game, so forth and so on. But if we're going to play these games, let's do the following. Let's have the proper time to train and get ourselves prepared. Let's not start on December 7th and let television dictate that we start on Christmas. And we all know that's not the proper amount of time to train and get ourselves prepared for the game. And then, by the way, let's put 72 games into a condensed amount of time and then call it, well, let's look at the last three seasons. We're not saying the same thing here. And I think we all can agree upon that. Now, we can make our argument, but LeBron James is making a point, just like you guys are making a point. Somewhere in this is the happy median, and we got to at least adhere because none of us, all of us are sitting here comfortably sitting down. Those guys are actually doing the work and playing, and they have to have a voice. Now let's keep that real.
Well, let's be careful. Everyone has a voice, but what are the lyrics? What is the song you're singing? Because everyone has freedom of speech, but you can't just go anywhere and just yell fire either. And that's what LeBron is doing right here. He's yelling fire, but then the evidence doesn't support it. So let's just do this simple equation. Because when you want to know what's the commonality in something, isolate variables. You just said 3 completely different seasons. But they all add up to the same injury rate, basically. So that means that, wait a minute, playing 82, playing 72, having 5 months off in a bubble is not necessarily the only reason that contributes to all of these injuries, which undermines what LeBron is trying to grandstand and say. Look, all this smoke that LeBron kicking up now and talking about I told you so, well, you had your chance to show me so by not agreeing to play on December 22nd and making that a bigger stink. But I get it. I would have played too, big dog, but I wouldn't have finished playing and then started to say, I told you so. That's my issue. It's a couple examples this reminds me of, because I love to go to an example to just kind of take us away from it, get out the forest so we can really see these trees. Here's one. People always talk about someone in hypertension. You know, number 1 cause of death in this country. Hypertension, right? And then this is what LeBron would say about hypertension, using this as an example. Oh, man, I told you, man, everybody out here got hypertension for the same exact reason. It's because they eat bad. And I'll be like, no, not just because they eat bad. Some are stress-induced. Some of them actually are in perfect condition, but they inherited it. And that's the point. You can get there so many different ways. Stop acting like, well, everybody just did it one way. And he's not even calculating how many injuries occurred by people just falling down, by people falling onto you, by just committed fouls. It's not always wear and tear injuries, so be careful of that. But here's the best example, because I'm from L.A., y'all. And in LA, when y'all migrants come into our city, all y'all land off the airplane to LAX and then hang out for a couple of days and all say the same thing. Man, everybody in LA has a Mercedes. Everyone in LA drives a Ferrari and is rich. I'm like, one, that's a damn lie. Most people in LA got a Toyota and a Honda. And second of all, LA ain't just Sunset and La Cienega, fool. You need to expand your horizons and look at it in totality. That's what LeBron needs to do. Look at this situation in totality, not just this year, the last few years, and understand there's more to the equation than just you had a condensed schedule. Coming up, the Sixers blew a 26-point lead last night. I'll tell you who's to blame for their collapse. That's next. Don't speak for yourself. Yeah, dog. Yeah, dog. Sixers were in cruise control last night till somebody woke up the Hawks in the second half. Atlanta came back from a 26-point deficit for the shocking win. Philly is now one loss away from elimination. After the game, Doc Rivers said, quote, "It's all on us. It's on me. It's on the players. And we have to figure out how to get back up, which we will." All right, so Slick Rick, who's to blame for Doc's club voice? I mean, for the Sixers' collapse once again.
God. God is to blame for where the 76ers are.
Oh, stop.
Because God made Joel Embiid a 7-foot, 280-pound center who plays with tremendous emotion, but an emotion that you can't sustain for 48 minutes. God made Ben Simmons a point guard who is tremendous in transition, but cannot execute and operate in a half-court set and is somehow reluctant to develop a free throw shooting form or a reliable jump shot. God made Daryl Morey, the GM, who was comfortable going into this season without a true point guard on his roster. And God made Doc Rivers, who looks at this team and will harangue them for not being mentally tough enough and not developing good habits, but will not make an adjustment, particularly at the defensive end, to save his life, just as he did in the bubble last year when he was with the Clippers, just as he has done in previous playoff series. So the 76ers are simply who God made them out to be. And now and then they face opponents who can't expose who they are. But now and then they face an opponent who can. Because God made the Atlanta Hawks as the perfect kryptonite for these Philadelphia 76ers. And you're seeing it happen in real time.
That was a perfect take right there, and I can't dispute it, but I can narrow the focus, and we have to, because God said faith without action is death. And these dudes may believe in themselves, but boy, they ain't acting like it, so they about to die. And guess who's going to lead that charge? It's the Diggy Doc, y'all, and I hate to do this to Doc Rivers, cool? Someone that I really respect, call a friend, but also somebody that has just put himself in a position where he's just the common denominator for a lot of playoff woes. Think about it. When my Clippers, in 7 seasons with the Clippers, did we ever make it to the Western Conference Finals? Nope. Did we have Lob City? Did we have a squad? Were we up 3-1? Yes. So, Doc, we gave you a pass in that moment, partly because it's the same thing that happens with my son when he's building his Legos or his puzzles. On the box is a fully completed Lego, fully completed box. And that's the reference picture. That's the reference point. But then you open it up and you're like, damn, what is this? Little pieces of Chris Paul, little pieces of Blake Griffin, little pieces of DeAndre Jordan. So you don't know what it's going to look like till you build it. But you're trying to build it there. So while you're building something, because you don't have it completed, you're not certain of what it should be. But now that he's gone and we're 1 game away from that Western Conference Finals, I think we know a little different in terms of evidence. Doc Rivers has an NBA record 10 playoff series blown after leading the series. That's the NBA record, brother. And this is going to be his 11th if they continue with that. He's lost 3 career playoff series, leading 3 games to 1. Most in NBA history. Let's just talk about the last 2 years with my man Doc Rivers. Of all the teams that have, goodness, I love you, Doc, but damn, facts over feelings. What is going on? The blown leads in the last 2 postseasons, 16-plus points. Doc got 5. Every other head coach in the league, all 29 of the rest of them, 3. Doc, 18 points, 4. Everybody else, 1. Doc, when it's 20 points and everybody either is going to concession stands or trying to beat traffic, donut for everybody else, and Doc has 2. The point is, I hate to say it, but all lasers, all things focus in on one guy being the issue once again in a different destination for some playoff woes. It's Doc Rivers.
Well, when you talk about the collapse, there's enough to spread around for everybody. You can look at the players, you can look at the coaches, you can look at, who put this team together. There's a lot of people. But when you are playing in the playoffs and when you're playing in this type of environment, okay, here's the following that you have to understand. You can't trust happiness. And the Philadelphia 76ers right now, every time they are in a comfortable situation, they don't have the discipline to, as you say, you gotta fight it, right? Fact over feelings. Okay, here's the facts. You're up 25, 26 points. Continue on what got you there. There's no reason right now to let off right now. Right now, Doc Rivers is faced with every great coach, every coach that, especially at the professional level, you have to coach. You don't just coach basketball and think you're going to win. You have to coach people. Right now, they have had 2 collapses, literally, in games because the people took the foot off the pedal and let this other team back into the game. There's no way that they should have relaxed, and that comes directly on the players. So the most important thing that happens when you're playing and you want to start looking around is the execution of the game plan. Right now, they had a game plan. Clearly, it was sound. Clearly, it worked. But right now, the people have to have the discipline to say, wow, when things look good, it's not really that good. And when things look bad, it's not really that bad. Because give Nate McMillan and team credit. When they were down and out, they had every reason to pack it up. They didn't. So you can't trust when you're too high in this league, and you can't trust when you're too low. But without question, the Philadelphia 76ers had the right plan. They're playing, but it's a 48-minute game. And if you play 40 minutes in this game and you get comfortable, you're going to lose. And that's what's happened, especially in these last 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said about your friend, I'm the same, man. I'm with you with the truth. But when you ain't, I can't be with you. And my friends know it's facts over feelings, and that includes me. I cannot like a slice of you, but still like all of you as a person to the core. I love Doc Rivers. But damn it, in these postseasons, I don't know how much I really love him. Because you look at the last 2 seasons in collapses, he owns the top 3, 4 of the top 5, 5 of the top 8, 14 and 27 in series-clinching games, which is the worst in NBA history. Come on, y'all. You fast forward to a Game 7, he's had 8 career Game 7 losses. That ain't going to add up to something good for the Philadelphia 76ers. So when you think about a player, we try to do the most we can. When you think about a coach, he has to increase that capacity of what we can do and get the most out of us. Somewhere in that equation, somewhere in building that, the pieces are falling. Coming up, the Bucks can be eliminated tonight. And I'll tell you if Giannis' legacy is on the line. That's next on Speak for Yourself. Bucks have their backs against the wall in a must-win at home tonight. Never hesitate to put up on this bag. Giannis struggled down the stretch in Game 5, while Kevin Durant put on an instant classic with a 49-point triple-double. After the game, Giannis said he wants to take on the challenge of guarding KD. So, BJ, is Giannis' legacy on the line tonight?
Well, the journey of a great player, in particular a superstar like Giannis, no, it's not on the line. I love the fact that this young man has stepped up to the plate. The one thing I love about Giannis, he doesn't shy away from big moments. He doesn't shy away from controversy. He doesn't shy away from leadership. Now, clearly we can all criticize and say, well, he doesn't shoot the three-point ball and all those things. But every time I look up, this young man shows up to the run. Okay, if we're going to take it to what it really is, he never misses his opportunity to play, and he's always aggressive when he's doing it. So if they need him to guard KD, he's he didn't win it this year, but last year he was Defensive Player of the Year. He's a first-team all-defensive player. Why wouldn't we have him on Kevin Durant? Okay, that's good theater. That's good television. That's what I want to see. I want to see the very best offensive player in today's game versus arguably the very best defensive player in the game. That's what you come to see. That's the best at the best. When this series started, that's what this is the matchup we want to see. Now it's in high pressure, high stakes. Kevin Durant is coming off of literally a 49, 50-point game. And now my man Giannis says, give me that matchup. I want some of that. This is beautiful. This is what basketball is all about. Competition. Compete. Lay it out on the line. If you want to be the best player, lay it out on the line. Giannis did that. I love the fact that he stepped up to the plate. All of this, what happens? Look, everybody knows that plays that game the following. You can play good defense, but it's not going to stop better offense. Kevin Durant is an exceptional offensive player.
Say that.
Okay? You can say a lot of things about Kevin Durant, but I don't care what era, since 1946. You can drop Kevin Durant off, and Kevin Durant is going to score 30, 40, 50 points a game. Okay? That's how talented he is. But I like the fact that Giannis said, I want some of that action. I can't wait. Get me ready for the team. I'm ready for it right now. I'm ready to pull off this blazer and get it going. Because that, to me, is the NBA that I grew up watching. That's what made it great. Give me that Magic versus Bird. Give me all of that smoke. So I can't wait for it to happen.
Yeah, I'm glad that Giannis, and I agree that Giannis is always willing to accept the challenge. I wish he'd accepted it a little bit earlier, like maybe a game earlier in doing so. But no, his legacy is not at stake. He's too young. He's in the middle of his career at best. His standing among current stars is at stake because we've seen Trae Young show out. We've seen KD show up and show out. We've seen CP3. We've even seen, my goodness, we've even seen Paul George to this point step up and get it done. So that's where Giannis stands. We see him as in the elite category of players in the league. If he loses this next game, if the Bucks lose this next game, then he's going to be falling into that pandemic P category that Paul George is trying to climb out of.
Man, look, I'm with y'all. No, his legacy's not on the line for maybe different reasons. Obviously because of his youth, but because of the duality of his individual greatness, but his team's playoff issues. So I don't think that this is going to sway it either way. Let's say they advance, they beat Brooklyn somehow, some way, and come back. Oh, you beat a wounded Brooklyn team, so the legacy can't get affected. Or if he has his shortcomings and they lose this series, like it looks like they will, then all of a sudden we're going to say, same old Giannis in the postseason. So I just don't see where we're going to get any movement, any direction. But Giannis, you ain't fooling me with this whole, I'm at the podium after 5 games and say, I want Kevin Durant now. Like, first of all, we all do film study. Kevin Durant was on that team in game 1. Your ass was not trying to guard him for obvious reasons, because he going to expose you to those that don't know you. But I know you, big dog. They forced Giannis to be clutch in every game down the stretch when we all know it ain't for him. Giannis can give you the 46 first minutes, but the last 2, it better be Middleton or Drew Holiday, somebody else, someone who can make free throws, and somebody who ain't going to fumble the ball away because they scared that they got to go to the free throw line. So, Giannis, you didn't have to tell anybody what you want because they keep force-feeding you because of the power you possess. Use that same power to cover Kevin Durant. Why you going to the podium? This is the dude that say, hey, dog, meet me there. I want to fight you. What's up? What it going to do? He don't really want you to fight. That's why he giving you the monologue and the whole intro. Bruh, when you really want to throw them things, they just start swinging. Sorry, I don't believe you. Coming up, Paul George did his thing, but I'll tell you, if I have faith in my Clippers, and can we close out the Jazz without Kawhi? That's next. Don't speak for yourself. Hotline. Clippers for Mr. Kawhi Leonard last night, but Paul George showed up in a big way. PG had 37 points, 16 rebounds to lead my squad to the Game 5 win. Clippers can close out the series tomorrow right here in La La and make their first trip ever to the conference finals. So slick. You have faith in my Clippers closing out the Jazz without Kawhi. Yes.
I am confident as I've ever been in the Clippers, which means that I'm 99% confident. They still are the Clippers.
What does that mean?
Look, I believe since the beginning of the year, because of the changes that they made, that this is a different team with a different mindset, and that they should get this done. But that said, closeout games are just different. It's like the fourth quarter of an NFL playoff game. You can play a certain way through the first three quarters, but ask the Texans, ask the Falcons. That fourth quarter comes at you different. So you got a little bit more to do, but I believe that they will get it done.
Man, all that God talk last segment, now you lose faith. It's Clips in 6. I've been saying it from hell.
You lose faith?
Yeah, you did. 99%. This is grown man sweep time. Get out of here, Utah. Take your butt back to that altitude. That's it for us. Fox Bet Live. Next.